Today, we start a new journey here in 2025 to bring you our new podcast, Krazy for Kabooms. What's up, everyone? I'm Antonio.
And I'm Mason.
And welcome to our new podcast,
Krazy for Kabooms.
So 2024 just ended, 2025 on the uprise. Big year for us in general, the hobby, traveling, new platforms being created.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just a big year for cards in general.
Definitely. A lot of attendance record spikes at shows, new platforms being created.
Yeah, like Fanatics Live. Definitely think there's going to be more coming in
multiple
2025 as well.
Sales and percentages increase.
Mm-hmm. All right, so big year in 2024. As we said, I say we recap what happened in 2024.
So we'll go through some negatives, some positives, 2024, and we'll give a little opinion on it.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll start with the negatives. One negative in 2024 that was big was card show thefts. That was a huge problem in 2024. $2 million stolen at the Dallas Card Show. The National, there was multiple stories of theft there. People running around stealing things, and even just recently here in this last month, Philly, people going up to card tables while dealers are talking to someone and just taking a box off their table. That was a huge problem in 2024 that we kept seeing. Another thing.
There's the big problem with CT scanning, definitely. I mean, there's already a lot of controversy around breakers and, are they getting all these loaded cases and loaded boxes because they're getting all these big hits? But who knows now if they're using this technology to see what is in these cases and if there are big hits.
Definitely hurts people who invest in sealed wax. That
definitely
hurts them bigly. Another thing was Panini versus Topps. That was a huge issue in the beginning of the year with them filing lawsuits against each other, just ruining the market when it comes to product and players and licenses. Just a huge debate and a huge topic that went on in 2024 that could cause some issues. And another big problem that we saw in 2024 was the national infrastructure problems. Long hour waits for food, bathroom, traffic was a huge problem in 2024 for the Nationals, as we could speak for ourselves, being there and experiencing these problems. We also had hotels that were really far away. So that was just a huge, big problem that had with the Nationals. We also saw Becking grading services on the decline, and PSA and SGC on the uprise. That was a huge thing with Numbers and Beckett. Their sales are down, the amount of cards they're grading are down, and PSA kind of creating a little monopoly for this hobby of grading. So what do you think the biggest negative would be in 2024 in your opinion?
I mean, personally for me, I think one of the biggest negatives would definitely be the issues going on with Panini and Topps. I mean, you can see that because Panini is losing their license very soon, they're trying to flood the market as much as they can. And you can see this in the increase of downtowns and Kabooms that are being hit. And granted, it's really all about luck and plucking the right box, but I can speak from experience. I mean, you were there too. In Philly, I got an Optic retail box and I hit a downtown out of a retail box. I mean, downtowns have been very hot recently.
Yeah.
So
the amount printed have been up. We also see from the Panini versus Topps, major star players getting their market flooded, including two generational talents possibly, and Wemby and CJ Stroud. That was a huge problem where Panini did not have autos of CJ Stroud or Wembanyama in products that everyone would want to chase their autos in. We didn't get a CJ Stroud flawless auto. We didn't get a CJ Stroud Prism auto. Same with Wemby. And that hurt their market. And then here comes Topps coming out with their own version of Victor Wembanyama autos and CJ Stroud autos, but they're non-licensed. And that hurt their value without the license. People don't want to pay thousands and thousands of dollars
for unlicensed cards.
Just unlicensed cards. And then later down in the road, after having a huge Wemby chase in Topps Chrome Basketball, non-licensed, pulling the 101 and all that commotion, they then release a huge Wemby product only in Topps Mercury, which was a terrible idea for the 1B market. I get the idea, but all it did was flood his other cards. People were paying. These boxes are like $8,000, and all you get is 1B cards, and you're guaranteed an auto.
And it takes away the chase.
It takes away the chase, and you're also flooding the market with more 1B autos. And what did we see from, the cards in Topps Chrome once the Mercury came out?
Oh, they tanked.
We saw a complete decline in those types of cards when people could just buy a better version of a 1B auto, even though they're still unlicensed. Topps gave their best with trying to hide the licensed stuff, and I think they did it well for football. Basketball, you could really tell from certain collectors that it's unlicensed. So that was a huge problem where they just flooded the market with 1B. His stuff was on the decline. You're just guaranteed an auto in the Mercury, and it just flooded it. Now, same with CJ Stroud. We didn't get the Prism. We didn't get the Flawless. And even Anthony Richardson, he was a big name in the start of the 2024 season for some collectors. And people invested in a lot of his big cards. And when, Topps released his autos, unlicensed, the quality of the autos were not good from Anthony Richardson. Some of these
Very small.
the quality of his auto, just the way they were signed, not good quality, just in general from the Panini versus Topps. So I think it would be another thing that interesting. I see how this all pans out in 2025 card shows was the national infrastructure problem. Obviously, we were there. We could
speak on it.
Speak to both all these topics in hour-long lines for food, hour-long lines for the bathroom. Even hotels, the closest hotels was like 10 to 15 minutes away.
And in not very good areas this year either.
Very bad transportation. There was no train. Everyone was driving or in an Uber, a taxi, and we're all going into 3 entrances into the IX Center. Very bad way of setting it up when it comes to traffic and just in general.
I mean, it got to the point where you're saying to your Uber, "Oh, just let me out here. I'll walk another 2 football fields just to get into the show." And then you have people without VIP passes who are waiting 2 hours just to even get into the show.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big problem.
The one thing I did like, though, is the attendance record. It spiked in 2024 from the Nationals, and I think Cleveland was not prepared for that.
No,
I think Chicago handled it well, but Cleveland was not prepared for the attendance that we saw at this National, which I do love. But also another thing, I think it was like day 4, and I was going through tables and walking around, and I saw this little door, and I saw a bathroom sign on it. So I was like, let me go to the bathroom, right? And I walked in, and I saw so much empty space. I'll put a picture up on the screen to show you guys, but so much empty space, like it's like a whole nother hangar just attached that they were hiding from just the public in general. And I say to my cousin, I'm like, why aren't we using this? Why we could at least fit another 1,000, 2,000 tables in this huge area. It was huge, and it wrapped around the whole IX Center. So I was just a little confused why we didn't use this to our use, especially with attendance records,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'll say a very big problem at the National this year was it was very, very overcrowded. Yeah. I mean, you had to push through mobs of people just to see one case. And like Antonio said, there was so much unused space that if they used, definitely might even bring in more attendance because you'll have more tables.
Yeah.
And B, it would solve the crowding problem because you'd have people spread out more between the VIPs, like in the lounge downstairs, where there were still people trading even during the show. You had that separate room off to the left. You have the main show floor, and then you have all this other space.
That wasn't
like you said, you could have easily fit another 1,500 to 2,000 tables in that unused space.
Yeah, and it wrapped around the whole IX Center. Another thing, just closing this out here, is, I remember I was just doing my thing, going to table, looking at cards, and I saw like a big line of people. And, there's a lot of stars there walking around,
Mhm.
and
I mean, we saw Pete
events. Yeah,
Rose.
there's a lot of events that happen
Yeah.
just on the show floor. So
Mhm.
you're looking. I'm like, oh, what's going on over here? And nothing. It was just a long line to go to the bathroom, which was
That's
crazy because it
mhm.
went into rows of tables, and I was just like, wow, this is ridiculous. Thank God the VIP helped, but just bad problems in general, just for the national when it comes to
Mhm.
attendance and dealing with that attendance.
Mhm. I mean, I'd say another problem going into with the national, going into a bit more of the market side was definitely like the fact that the dealers were overpricing their cards by an insane amount and being very, very firm on those prices. I mean, you'd go to a table looking for a card that you see is comped at like $700-800 on eBay, and they have it stickered for 1300-1400 and are firm on that number.
Mm-hmm.
And like I would say that is a huge problem because us going through the show and then going back for trade night after, trade night, I could personally say, might have been a bit better than the actual show because you have people with great, amazing cards, even some cards that you're seeing on the show floor, but for much, much better prices.
Yeah,
Definitely.
definitely. That was a big part of the national, especially all the trade nights, just in general.
Mhm.
What else we got for another problem here in 2024?
I mean, I'd say big problem was the card show thefts.
Definitely.
Sticking to card shows. I mean, you had the 2 million stolen in Dallas. You had a bunch of stuff planned to be stolen at the National, and tens of thousands of dollars actually stolen at the National.
Yep.
And then even recently, in the past month, I mean, we were there. Philly, you had people making
Definitely.
deals, and there were just people walking up to tables, walking up to dealers, and just taking boxes and taking product right off of their table and
Yeah.
just walking away. I mean, it has been a huge problem.
I do agree, and even we saw in Dallas, I think in June, this was planned. It was planned, and you could tell these people, were familiar with their surroundings.
Mm-hmm.
It was a familiar maybe show for them. Thank God we got them on video. We have them
You have the
on
faces.
video. It was planned and all that. So hopefully we could, PSA also did deactivate the grading number of the cards that were stolen. So
Most of it
that's
was
something to
vintage,
watch out. Yeah,
right?
a lot of vintage, a lot of PSA cards too. So that's one way that I like that PSA came in to help. But yeah, hopefully this is something we could do to going into 2025 to stop some of these thefts. People just taking product like off tables while someone's in the middle of a deal. Um, plan thefts and just cards that they see and they just take and people not even noticing.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they go in that night and they notice the card's missing, they don't even know what happened.
Exactly. I mean, it's also been a problem, even definitely throughout COVID, and it's still a pretty big problem, is cards being stolen while they're being shipped. I mean, you got
Yeah.
people stealing cards out of packages while they're in transit, like UPS and
Yeah.
FedEx. I mean, it's not really related to cards, but just recently, my barber was selling something on StockX, and he got an empty box back from StockX saying we couldn't verify your sneakers because there was nothing in the box.
Yeah.
I mean, his sneakers got stolen out of the box while he was trying to sell them.
And also, which I do like though, that eBay did imply, which I think was a huge thing here in 2024, was the eBay authentication service and the eBay vault. That was huge for collectors, where now more collectors could sell, and because eBay saw that this was one of the biggest platforms that people use to sell cards
If
on
not the
eBay.
biggest.
Yeah, and they realized, how could we get more sales? Make people feel comfortable with buying cards on your platform. So cards that were bought on the platform of a certain value will be shipped to the eBay warehouse, where they're going to authenticate it, make sure everything's real, make sure this matches up to the exact thing you bought on the listing. And I think that's a big thing for collectors, where they could get trust back. So that was a huge thing.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing though we saw in 2024, CT scanning.
Yeah.
Topic here is, it posed the question, when you buy this sealed wax or a box of cards that's expensive, was this scanned? I know people were doing this with flawless cases, trying to find
Logo men and
Logo Man,
shields.
CJ Stroud, just cards in general for football, and also the 1-of-1 triple auto for the USA team.
Yeah.
That was huge. They came in those packs where it would say you either got the 1-of-1 triple auto or you got like
A parallel or
a
something.
parallel or a variation, image variation, which is still good. But these packs, this card still hasn't been found, but these packs have been, selling for 2,000-3,000, online. And I don't know if you would feel comfortable begging the question that have they been scanned. It also hurts long-term investors in sealed wax.
I mean,
that hurts because people may be a little more hesitant into should I buy this? Why wouldn't someone who owns a 2009 Topps Chrome box of basketball trying to see if the Curry 1-of-1 is, why wouldn't they scan it? Right? That could be some people's mindset. Why wouldn't I scan it? And if I know that the card is not in here,
I could sell it.
I'll sell it and I'll make $30,000 because I think that's what those boxes sell for whenever they come up on market, which is, could be an issue.
Yeah. So definitely another big problem was Beckett grading issues. I mean, they're down 20%. And then now you have PSA that just acquired SGC. I mean, what do you think about that?
I think that it could be a big problem. We saw in 2024, obviously PSA acquiring SGC, them kind of on the uprise. PSA starting to kind of create a little mini monopoly around just the hobby in general of cards. And we see Beckett, who was once on, an even-ish scale, with PSA, just no one's grading with them. And the value of Beckett cards have dropped.
Yeah,
significantly, where we could see a huge difference in the Beckett 9.5 to the PSA 10.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely now paying a premium for the PSA 10. And I was even talking to you about this a couple days ago. I mean, I was looking to purchase a certain card that in a BGS 9.5 sold for $950, but in a PSA 10 is listed for almost $2,000.
Yeah.
Just because it's a PSA 10 that you're paying a premium for.
I think for the specific card you're talking about, the card actually in a PSA and sold for about $1,800.
Yeah.
So that's almost a $900 difference. I mean, technically that is a bigger card, but that's just how like the trends we're seeing on the premium of the PSA 10 and the value we're seeing now in the 9.5 going into 2025. We're also seeing sales for Beckett drop. We're seeing the amount of cards graded in a month and a year in a certain amount of time decrease. And other companies just surpassing them. And we're begging the question, what's going on with Beckett? I think they had some company problems, though, throughout this year. So maybe in 2025, we get a first strong step going forward into Beckett. I think from here, we should go into some positives now into 2024 and what we saw and going into 2025. So going into some positives of 2024 and going into 2025, what do you think the biggest positive that you saw in 2025?
I mean, I definitely think that the record attendance at card shows is very, very big for the hobby going into 2025. I mean, it's nice to see new collectors, young collectors getting into the hobby and seeing even people who used to be collectors, even as kids back when they were like younger, like now adults, getting back into the hobby and being interested in it. I mean, and then you got all these new events like FanFest, definitely a big, big event. I mean, that we went to. Granted, we were only there for a day, but it's great because it's a crossover where you get a pretty good amount of card show mixed with all these great events and panels with all these celebrities and like GOATs. Like, I mean, you had Tom Brady, Kevin Durant in the same building, and even like rappers, like you Travis Scott doing panels with Michael Rubin, you had Lil Wayne doing panels with Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson.
Yeah, Jeter was there, the Knicks were there. I think FanFest
I think it's going to be
was
big.
A great event that they held in 2024, and they just scheduled one for 2025 in June. But I think that was the right step forward. You know, they took the card aspect of this hobby, which is huge. They made a section of it
dedicated for cards,
a card show section, and then they gave everyone a great fan experience.
Yeah.
They had Dana White there, bringing the UFC Octagon in. They had
fan interactive events.
Exactly. They had a racing, like a little 40-yard dash timing. They had the UFC walkout where you could make your own UFC custom walkout.
The hockey rink, like
you could do hockey shots. You could test your accuracy. You know, some people, you know, if you get lucky enough, you're competing against Tom Brady. You're racing Gronk. You're doing, your speed was there. That was they were racing kids. You know, there were so many, you know, activities that they had going around where some collectors who aren't really into cards, you know, but they love this hobby in general of maybe collecting signed memorabilia, or you know, they got to meet, you know, stars and stars doing signings.
Yeah, I mean, and
many stars.
And then you even had Travis Scott on day 2 throw a little mini concert during his panel. Like those are those sick ass things that are happening in these in FanFest.
Yeah,
and I've heard rumors apparently that they might be using more of the convention center, just not even just for the fan experience, but they might be even expanding the card aspect of it a bit more.
Yeah,
because the convention center that FanFest is in is huge. It's one of the biggest in the country.
Yeah, they did actually plan one here, another FanFest in Miami that ultimately got canceled for some reasons that we don't know.
Yeah.
They did reschedule it back in New York here for June, which I'm very excited about because we saw many different aspects of this hobby, and all the fans came together to just kind of celebrate this hobby, which was really, really good. And just even touching a bit about, you know, like we said before about the National, the attendance record was crazy, and that's what we'd love to see. Hopefully, Chicago in the convention center is able to hold all these new people. The amount of people that go. I think
Chicago's a bigger show.
Yeah, I think in 2023 it did a way better job when I was there. You know, just having a bigger feeling towards it than Cleveland, when everyone was a little, you know, close together and tucked in. So that was one aspect I liked better about Chicago. And also the next 3 years now are in Chicago. So hopefully, you know, they could see this attendance and they could prepare for this way better. I think that could be big. Another positive we saw was big chase cards. Big chase cards.
Yeah, especially with the MLB debut patches. I mean, you got this mania going around for the Paul Skeens. I mean, and even other big names like Jackson Chorio, Jason Dominguez, Jackson Merrill. I mean, these are like the ultimate chase card because you have a piece of game-worn like history. Like the Paul Skeens
first ever played game.
First ever played game from what might end up being some generational talents.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nuts. And even if you hit some of like the lesser known names or like
still selling for like
$2,000-$3,000,
which is a great pull. I think you know, we had the debut patches last year. We had them last year. You know, we're a big success in 2023. Little lesser on the name side. I think the two biggest ones were
Adley, Gunnar, not Adley,
Volpe, and Jordan Walker. Those were the two biggest on the debut patches from last year when they had it. Volpe, there was a $150,000 bounty on it, which was huge. I don't know if it was ever accepted. I don't know that. But, you know, just with the success and the buzz it created around the hobby, you know, ultimately they do it again this year. And what do we know? Way bigger names. Paul Skeens, Ellie De La Cruz, all the Jacksons, Churio, Holiday, Merrill, you know, Dominguez, we have Yamamoto.
PCA.
We have a huge amount of solid rookies with huge names. Unfortunately, the Skeens have not been pulled. That was the big chaser. But we saw big bounties for this. You know, we had the Pirates coming out and saying, you know, offers, if you have this card, we'll make you a big offer. 30 years of season tickets down in the front row. You get to meet Paul Skeens. You get to have PNC Park for a night. I'm pretty sure just have like a mini wiffle ball game. You get to meet Livy Dunn. It's this whole experience that the Pirates offered. And then you have the other card side where people are offering cash. $500,000 bounty.
Yeah.
Just for that card. And time will tell when it will get pulled. I think just one last positive here of 2024 is the USA Olympic team.
Definitely.
Winning gold. We finally, I'm pretty sure, sent out our God squad of players to the Olympics. And
LeBron, Katie, and Curry, big trio.
Them winning gold resulted in the triple auto that we were talking about before.
Which is also a big chase that, like the Paul Skeens, still has not been hit. And there are big bounties on that card. I mean, if that card hit auction, would definitely do over $1 million, no doubt.
I mean, I don't know. It was a Topps Now card.
Yeah.
So all the cards have been shipped out.
It's out there somewhere.
It's out there in a pack, or maybe someone pulled it and no one's saying anything. We don't know where the card is. But to see that so many people, even Giannis, saw that card and said, I want that card. He's like, I'll double
the
highest offer is, which would end up being $1 million. So I don't know how much that was true. And he said you could come and meet me, whatever. But basically, there was players, there was big card people wanting to see this card, wanting to buy this card. People even just giving you $10,000 just to see and hold the card.
Yeah.
People were offering they'll give you $10,000 as long as they're able to hold it, not even buy it.
Yeah.
So that was a huge just positive going into from 2024 going into 2025. And hopefully, we see some of these trends and some of these bigger cards, like Topps Now also had a big rise this year in popularity and one-on-ones. They had the Ohtani 1-of-1 when he hit the 50-50. And that was huge. That actually got
Soto
pulled.
signed autos too.
That got pulled, I think a couple weeks ago, the Ohtani 1-of-1. But they were making Jaden Daniels from the draft. They were making crazy moments just in general, even from the World Series, the playoffs.
Yeah, I saw Freddie Freeman 1-of-1 just recently got hit.
Yeah.
From his walk-off grand slam.
So I think that Topps Now took a really good step in the right direction. Some people may say, oh, they're producing
way too much
1-on-1s, which could be true, but I think just in general, having these 1-on-1 cards of a specific moment for possibly your favorite player, great idea. I love it.
I mean, for me personally, like that triple auto chase, it kind of reminded me a bit of the Braun triple logo man chase, where you had the entire hobby just chasing this one card that is worth an insane amount of money from all-time players.
I think it sold for $1.4 million after Backyard got pulled it. It actually sold on Golden, which was great.
Yeah, I mean, you had Drake, one of the biggest rappers in the world, who really knows nothing about cards, chasing this card.
Yeah, it creates, when there's a huge card in this hobby,
creates mania.
A lot of people start to figure and start to hearing and getting that buzz, and they're like, all right, I want to participate in this, which is really cool.
And it gets people into the hobby.
Yeah, so hopefully all those positives takes even bigger step here in 2025. We'll just go into our last topic here. We'll say a little bit about ourselves and how we got into the hobby. If you want to start.
So I definitely got into the hobby really through you. I mean, I remember me and you one day playing MLB The Show with one of our other friends, and he's like, "Oh, I gotta go for a bit. I'm going to do this trade night." I'm like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" He's like, "Oh, it's sports cards."
Yeah,
and it was almost a bit of FOMO where I'm like, I'm missing all this fun stuff with my friends. Like, I want to get into this.
I think it was we were talking with our other friend. Me and him, we collected. I got him into it around COVID, and we were talking about it because I think it was right. There was a trade night maybe the next day or something. Or we were going to a card show, and I think you ultimately asked, "What's cards?" And that's how I kind of started teaching you, getting you into this process, and it's definitely been a journey. How
Yeah,
we've came from one night,
all the
on
way to here,
on the
going to the
mic,
nationals.
yeah, and traveling, and now we're here making a
A
podcast.
podcast. Yeah, it's
Um,
pretty crazy.
for me, I was doing it from when I was young. My earliest memory, just about cards in general. Um, just every year on Christmas, 2014, 2015, I remember getting the complete sets and getting packs of cards. That's my earliest memory of cards in general. And looking at the complete set, obviously now I like to keep them a little sealed if, just in general, if I get the complete sets. But opening up the complete set and going through each player and seeing cards that I love and players that I love in there. And I think that was, a big thing for me that I remember. And that's how I really took that next step. I remember even opening a pack of 2019 on Christmas, and I pulled like a Mike Trout bat relic, which at the time he just won his like second, third MVP, something like that in 2019, and he was the MVP. So that was kind of like a crazy card for my young self at the time that really, I think, got me to take that next step to keep going. And also going to shows, just with my dad in general. Going to White Plains, going to shows around here in New York. I think that really, led me to even during COVID when I found out about this huge show called the National, and I was like, "What's the National?" And then I saw like a video of someone going to it in 2019. I was like, "That's really cool. I want to do that. I want to travel and go do something I love." And that's really how I got into this type of hobby. And it sounds bad, but cards is my life here. I love it, and I hope that 2025 and just on is just
Great for cards, definitely.
It's great. So this concludes our first episode of Crazy for Kabooms. Looking forward to next episode where we'll be talking about a little more of the card show experience, what to look for, and also stories that we've encountered, throughout the years going to card shows and traveling around.
Some crazy stories.
We have some good ones. Also, maybe
might have a little mystery
guest. So we'll see who could come on the
down.
show.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching Crazy for Kabooms.